This video falls under fair use. Fair use allows commentary, criticism, and reactions. What's up, back with another one. So today I'm showing you Richard Jefferson talking about Kenyon Martin and Draymond Green. Check this clip out.
Okay, this message is to Kenyon and Draymond only. I'm going to talk about both of you guys to you guys. Kenyon, or first of all, Draymond. Let me talk about Kenyon first. Kenyon was, and I know you know this. This is how I'm going to talk about both of you guys. Kenyon was maybe the most elite defender, physically, communication-wise, intensity, all the things. That's who Kenyon was. Kenyon showed up. He had a chance at Rookie of the Year, but was coming off a major injury, was still the number one pick. That's how dominant he was in high school or in college. And when I got there and I was a defender, Kenyon was so elite defensively. The Nets were picked to finish second to last. Go ahead, I know it was 25 years ago. We were picked to finish second to last in our conference. We led the conference start to finish and went to the finals. And that was because, in my opinion, of obviously Jason Kidd was our Steph Curry. But Kenyon Martin was our Draymond Green. 1,000%. Kenyon Martin, guard 1 through 5. We could switch 1 through 4 with Jason Kidd and him. He could guard 1 through 5. He's skinny. He's a skinny boy. So the same toughness of being undersized and having to go against Alonzos and Tim Duncans and those dudes, Kenyon was very similar to you, Draymond, as an individual that would fight against people. Kenyon Martin was both of y'all have been to anger management, and rightfully so. Both of you guys have. And I've played with both of you, and you both need it, and it's also both of your guys' superpower, that intensity. That intensity is both of your guys' superpower, so I'm not surprised that two alphas in this space don't get along. I will not disrespect Draymond and all of his accomplishments, but I'm sure is not going to disrespect Kenyon and his ability. He was a one-time All-Star, but think about it. He has no all-defensive team, I don't believe, but he helmed the number one defense from my first year and my second year, our two NBA Finals years, right? Our two NBA Finals years. He helmed the number one defense. He was the center. He was the 2. He was guarding every position. He was that dude. While he should have, in my opinion, it was maybe his rebounding numbers weren't high enough because you had the Ben Wallaces, you had those Dikembes. How are you not on an all-defensive team in Kenyon's defense unless you know, or if you're running those two top defenses, you should be on the all-defensive team. Now, let me say this about Kenyon. We went to 2 NBA Finals. We were tied 2-2 with Tim Duncan and the Spurs. Obviously, we lost to Shaq and them. We won 10 straight in the postseason back in 2002. 10 straight in the postseason, Dre. You know how hard that is. That's intensity, that's focus, that's locked in. 10 straight. Then we followed up, and we swept the Knicks the next year. So we won 14 straight games versus our conference. That was the defensive intensity that Kenyon held. Obviously, J. Kidd was the dude. He was the all-defensive guy. Kenyon should have been there. Kenyon was elite, and let me show you how elite he is.
Let me just jump in real quick. Jefferson really respects that old-school toughness, and you can tell he values discipline.
This is how I'm going to lead into Draymond. Kenyon was so elite, we never went to the finals again without him. We never went to another conference finals. We went to multiple playoffs. We never went to another conference. Obviously, Kenyon had, I think, the knee surgery, the microfracture. So he was a good player, but never the ability to be a great player, in my opinion. I love you, Kenyon, but that's just the true after the knee surgery. But Kenyon was that dude. Now, Draymond, part of the reason why many months ago I said, Draymond, you are the most important defender of this generation. And that's based off of my knowledge of Kenyon Martin. That's my knowledge of Kenyon Martin and what he would do, right? That's why in Golden State, if they lose you, right, it's a problem. Same way when we lost Kenyon, we never went to a conference finals. Now, to Kenyon's point, Dre, I love you to death. Kenyon, he was a little different up there, right? There's that Ron Artest, there's that Kenyon Martin gene, right? Where it's like, hey, you don't want them to see red. You don't want those Bulls to see red. I personally don't believe that if you two were on the court at the exact same time and you were being Draymond and he was being Kenyon, if this was 2004, Dre, you would have had some issues. If it was 2020, I think the dynamic is different. It's not allowed to get that way. If you were playing with Kenyon, because I watched him club Karl Malone, I watched him club Tracy McGrady, and part of the reason why I got the start, or they traded Keith Van Horn, is because every time Kenyon would get suspended, and it was a lot, I would get to start. I would become the starting small forward. So that's what I'm expressing, is that if you, and this is not saying that Draymond, you would have talked how you talked, because that's who you are.
Richard Jefferson is calling it for what it is. He said Kenyon is the toughest, but he also wants to see them to stop going back and forth with each other.
But if you would have talked like that to Kenyon in 2004, when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated with his chest out saying bad yellow boy, and the NBA told him he had to stop showing that tattoo when he would dunk on people, y'all would have fought 100%. I saw him. Y'all would have fought 100%.
He did get suspended a lot.
He got suspended a lot. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated and it said flagrant flyer because he was flagrant fouling people. Who else does that sound like? Draymond, right? Y'all are very, very similar. You are both at your peak, elite defenders. So please stop arguing. Neither of you guys are going to win this argument. You guys are not going to win it. You both are some of the greatest I've ever seen. You both are a little different, all right? But just know this, Dre, I will respect Kenyon because I fought him in a locker room, right? Because we were chirping back and forth.
Why would you do that?
Because I'm crazy too. I'm just a different type of crazy as these two.
Richard Jefferson has always been honest about the type of players he respects and the dynamics that exist in professional basketball. And when he talks about Kenyon Martin, it's clear he admires him for his old school mentality, his toughness on the court, and the way he played with a kind of intensity that demanded respect from teammates and opponents alike. Jefferson emphasizes that Martin was the kind of teammate who brought accountability and grit to every practice and game. Someone who didn't just rely on talent but worked tirelessly to maintain a high standard of professionalism, and this approach often made a huge difference in team chemistry and on-court performance. In contrast, when Jefferson talks about Draymond Green, he paints a more complicated picture. While Green is undoubtedly talented and versatile, Jefferson points out that his behavior can sometimes be reckless and disruptive, creating tension within teams and occasionally undermining team cohesion. Jefferson highlights the difference between a player like Martin, whose toughness serves a constructive purpose, and a player like Green, whose intensity sometimes spills over into moments that are controversial or counterproductive. Jefferson's perspective is rooted in respect for the game itself. He values players who channel their competitiveness in ways that elevate the team, rather than creating unnecessary drama. He also touches on how public perception of players is shaped by these behaviors, noting that fans, media, and even teammates often form strong opinions based on not just performance, but personality and attitude.